Good evening, everyone. Come on in the room. Come and join us. I am excited about our conversation today. So please come on into the space. Drop a comment. Let me know you're here. I pray you've had an awesome day and an awesome week so far. So please come on in and let me know you're here. Also, let me know if you hear me okay or if we're having any connection issues. Um, oh, hey, Mama. Mama's on time, too. Okay. Thank you for joining. I feel like hey, Raina, nice to see you. Awesome to be in this space with you guys. Yay. Come on in, because we got to figure this out. We've got to talk about what we're doing. Okay. I got a special guest. I need y'all to pray though. Oh, Raina, let me put that up there. Oh, grandmama, Raina said hi. Okay, because my special guest was in the studio, and now it looks like he's not there because it could be some connection issues, and it could be from mine this time. We had some storms today, so I don't know what's happening, what's going on, but I need y'all to pray that the connection be good and come on in the space and let's talk about what is happening. This is also Father's Day weekend, right? So we want to definitely shout out all the good dads out there doing their thing, right? Shout out all the good dads that, like my nephew, Caleb, with his wife Raina, doing their thing as daddies, right? Trying their best to make it happen for their families. Kudos to you all. Kudos to you all. All right, I'm waiting to see just a few more people before we get started. And we're going to get into this conversation about Juneteenth because today is a big day. Today, laws passed, you know, we got to talk about this, okay? Because we have an Independence Day now. And so what does that mean? So we have to definitely discuss this. We have to discuss this. Okay, so drop in the comments. Let me know you're here so that we can get this conversation started. All right. And let me know if hey, Keisha, let me know if I'm breaking up or anything. You guys keep me posted. All right. All right, it's 9:03. Y'all know how I do it. Whoever's meant to be here will be here. And again, if you share it on your page, it's never lost. Other people can see it. So listen, let's get started. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tisa's Rants and Musings. Come on, I need you to stop scrolling. I need you to stop right here and join us for this conversation because we have a special guest tonight, but we are talking about Juneteenth, Juking and Jiving. What are we doing? Okay. As you can see, I'm wearing my Juneteenth t-shirt. We had a celebration that my sister was wonderfully put together as the chairperson of the African American Heritage Committee at our job. And it was a wonderful ceremony, a lot of education sharing, music. So we were celebrating Juneteenth and all that it meant. But we want to talk about it. What is the importance of Juneteenth? And now that it has passed the House and the Senate, and it's on Joe Biden's desk to sign. I haven't heard if he signed it today or not, but it's on his desk to sign the bill regarding, to put into law the Juneteenth National Independence Day. Wow. Juneteenth National Independence Day. That means we have an Independence Day as Black people. So that means July 4th is not your Independence Day. Never was. Juneteenth is. But, okay, what does that mean? Right? So help me welcome into the space for us to decipher this, to talk about this, to rant a little bit about this. Let us know Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. It's signed into law. He signed the bill. So we got us a holiday. Yay. All right. But listen, Pastor Fred Sullivan, he is a friend to the show. He's usually a part of the trio of power-packed heavy hitters that grace us all the time with their rants, their intellect, their theology, their theological scholarship. But tonight I got sequestered by himself. He is on the show tonight to come help us decipher and to think about what is it that we are really celebrating? How should we be celebrating? Why do we need to celebrate or not? And how do we not make this? What do we make of this? So help me welcome to the show, Pastor Fred Sullivan. Yay! I'm so glad you were able to join us. Listen, you don't got you get the mic all yourself tonight, right? You don't have Rodney and Katina, okay, to contend with. You got the mic all to yourself tonight. But bro, I need some help. Like I said, my sister put on a beautiful celebration today at the job. It was moving, it was powerful. But I gotta be honest, I feel like, we as Black people are in this domestic violence relationship with America, right? I feel like we get abused. They come back like they're sorry. Hey, Eunice, they come back like they're sorry. They hand us some flowers. We get happy, but nothing is really changing, right? Nothing is really systemically changing, or maybe it is, right? But then we feel guilty. Then you feel guilty for accepting the roses because, again, this holiday was fought for, right? We did fight to get this, to be acknowledged of our history. So how do we balance out this celebrating it, be happy for it, but then yet feeling like this is a guy who just beat us up but is now handing us flowers? What do we do with this?
Well, first off, thank you for the invite, and I miss our colleagues, Katina and Rodney.
Yes.
The students aspiring to higher heights, but I'm happy to join you to talk about this tonight because I've been feeling some kind of way about this whole thing as we've moved through this. I think there's a couple things we have to say. I mean, any opportunity that we have to celebrate the resilience and the beauty of Black people, I think we ought to take it. I think we ought to. So I think that here you have an opportunity. I've been in conversations with people and they're like, I'm tired of dealing with, they don't want to see another vision or movie or docuseries about being enslaved. They feel as if we've seen that story. We want to talk about something else. We want to celebrate. And I think we can celebrate our enslaved ancestors, our forebears who lived under apartheid, those people who came before us. And we ought to live in that celebration. So in that sense, I'm all for it. And I think that this offers us a beautiful opportunity because you look at how many people. I was on a call today with members of my firm. I work for, I'm bivocational. I also have a real estate practice with a commercial real estate firm and based in Texas. And they had a wonderful call today and part of a series of events all through the week, something else tomorrow, celebrating Juneteenth. And some of my colleagues, especially from Texas, who have been celebrating the holiday all of their lives, holiday in Texas, right?
Wait, before you even go on, I just need people to hear that this have been a holiday in Texas forever. Right. But then look at look at the politics of Texas. We have the holiday, but I still don't think they know we free.
Well, but
this is part of the dichotomy of it, right? Indeed. They've had it on the books, they celebrate it, but they still act like they don't know we free. But go ahead. We're gonna get to that.
So, and part of that holiday, Sheila Jackson Lee had been leading the charge, co-sponsor of the bill that was passed in the House and Senate and then the House, and then now signed into law by the president. So Sister Jackson Lee, kudos to her and her work, because this is something that we ought to know this story. But some of my colleagues were saying they'd never heard of it and felt embarrassed that they'd not heard of Juneteenth. But we haven't heard all the stories about our people all around the nation.
No.
And I wanted to tell some of them, don't be ashamed that you don't know that history.
Yes.
But the beauty of people learning that history and being proud of the fact that these the freedmen of this Galveston community had established this jubilation day. But just like when we're reading the biblical text, we know things about the future that the characters in the stories don't know. And as hopeful as they were, I told the CEO and a few other folks that I was with today that slavery didn't end so much as it was transformed. So what then is Independence Day? You see everywhere you turn, this marks the end of slavery. It was not the end of slavery. It was not the end of slavery in Texas. It was not the end of slavery around the country. It was not the end of slavery here in New Jersey. So there were enslaved Africans in New Jersey at least until January 23rd, I believe, of 1866, when the state finally ratified the 13th Amendment. So what does Juneteenth actually mean then? Who was actually free? And I think that it's important for us as we think about the fact that what happened in Texas, that was their story. It's not my story. I'm not from Texas.
Right.
My story is different, but I can celebrate these Black people that went through this, and as a proxy, celebrate my enslaved forebears and celebrate with brothers and sisters. It's just that we got to be clear about what it is that we're talking about. And I don't think that's just a semantic difference. We have to really be clear about what we're talking about. And we can, I told folks, I am in a place of observance. You used the word commemoration earlier when we spoke. I'm not in a mode of celebration over that. Because I think that what happened next was a lot of disappointment, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of death. But I can celebrate the people, and we have to find ways to live in celebration of our ancestors each and every day. Don't wait for Juneteenth.
Wow, and that's what you're saying is so powerful, because it's just one part of our story, right? Juneteenth is just one part of our story, and if we really understand what's been happening since then, to your point, we really haven't been made free. We're still fighting. We're still fighting for liberation. We're still fighting for freedom. We're still fighting to be seen as equal people, that as equal as the people who vote the Constitution. Okay. As equal as the people who vote the Emancipation Proclamation. We're still fighting for that right. So it almost feels like a smoke screen. It almost feels like, okay, we're glad that we got a holiday, and to your point, we celebrate our resilience, but did we need this to do that? And I think we often get confused with, because they've given us this holiday, and they got it through this year because people just don't want to fight it anymore, because it didn't pass last year when they were trying to put it through. They were fighting against it. So it's not like the people's hearts have changed, right? It's not like there's a desire to still recognize the stories and history of Black people across the board, because these people decided to sign it into law. We're still fighting that fight. But I think more importantly, what you said is the fact that we don't know our own stories. We don't know if there's a story even greater than Juneteenth. We don't know oftentimes our history, because it's been hidden from us, it's been stolen and it's been silenced, and then it's been co-opted and diluted and changed. The stories we do know, right? So we the same stories over and over again, but we don't get the stories that could be even more meaningful, right? So then, should we be having parties? Should we be celebrating? Because like you said, I was commemorating. I was mentioning celebrating you know, the holidays, because some, you know, people are wondering, do we celebrate the holiday? Do we take this time, like you said, to recognize our resilience? But how do we do that without cheapening the lives that were lost after that? How do we do that without minimizing the impact of all of the damage and abuse that was done? To me, it's like saying, you know, yeah, we got you gave us, you know, some beef, but you stole our cow. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, and this is the relationship with America. They steal our stuff, they stole our cow, right? But then say we should be grateful that they're giving us back some beef. And I don't know if I want to be grateful about it, but I also want to celebrate.
Well, I look at it like this, because if you think about what we have to do with Thanksgiving, I mean, Thanksgiving is not our holiday. And what are we being thankful for? Are we thankful for the resilience of the community of pilgrims who relied on the natives to actually keep them alive, and then turned on them as soon as they got a chance to? I think that we have the need to, and once I got over the mythology of Thanksgiving as a young man, I decided to use the opportunity to be thankful and join with family to say, you know, we can come together and we're going to celebrate family. We're going to celebrate what it has taken for us to get to where we are. But, you know, I don't see myself as trying to recreate the jubilation of that Galveston community.
Right.
Because, you know, you can't, there's a shout you can't have if you don't know their struggle, right? You know, when somebody's in church and they are shouting and you see them emoting and you know they've been through something, but you don't know what it really felt like to be in their shoes going through it. You don't have the same shout.
Right.
And I think that that's our situation where we are right now. We don't have the shout that the Galveston community had because we didn't go through that. But we can still say, I'm going to use this opportunity. Like myself, we're gathering as a family. And I think the gathering just happened to come down on Juneteenth. But the opportunity exists for us to remember our enslaved forebears, for us to remember the people that lived on the land before we bought title to the house that we're going to be with. We have the opportunity to celebrate the cultures of resistance that sprang up. And I recommended to somebody that they watch the Netflix show High on the Hog. I think you've seen it. Did we have some text conversation about that show?
Yes, yes. And I haven't still seen it yet.
You haven't seen it yet? There are pieces in there, and it's not even the Juneteenth story, but there are some pieces in there that just bring me to a place of saying, I can just get here and give thanks to God for those people who went through. I mean, I know some stories of my people. You know, I know some of my father's stories that he told me before he passed. And I know some of my grandfather's stories that my uncles and aunts and my father have told me. And my mother has told me about her father. I know some of the stories about her mother, but I don't know much further beyond that. So there's so many more things for us to learn. But I know one thing. Somebody persisted because I'm here. Somebody persisted because, you know, my mother was before me. My father was before me. I can celebrate those people. And if Juneteenth becomes a proxy for that, then I'm just clear in my mind, it's a proxy for my other celebration. So I can transform what's been provided us, but I don't have to look at it as if, you know, this is the end. And for those voices that are trying to silence the study of systemic structures, of the things that we talk about when we start to delve into the notion of critical race theory. Some of those same voices voted for the Juneteenth holiday.
Yes, they did.
And I think that in some strange and twisted, perverted way, saying that, well, hey, slavery ended on June 19th, 1865. For that last group of the enslaved. If we buy into that narrative, that mythology, that falsehood, then we fall for the okie doke again as if we have overcome and we are people that have not yet arrived.
Wow. It's so powerful what you're saying. and shocking for me. Well, not shocking, that's the wrong word. Disappointing for me, knowing that some of the same people who signed this holiday bill are some of the same people who are fighting to have critical race theory not be taught in their schools, in their states, and they're going hard against critical race theory when even in some of the states nobody even mentioned bringing it into the school system, and they're already trying to preempt the discussion of bringing it into the school system and knocking it down. So again, it's just, for me, again, this gaslighting that goes on in our abusive relationship with America. And it also, and let's throw out there, Obamacare was also upheld, right? I think it was 7-2. Obamacare lives on, right? But yet we're still waiting for the anti-lynching bill. We're still waiting for the George Floyd Act. We're still waiting for way more important legislation to happen. So help me understand before I get too angry with this administration, right? The one that we voted in, the old man who told us that if we didn't vote for him, we weren't black and sister, right? We got them in office now. I need to understand what is happening that we got a bill, because I would have liked him to say, thank you, yay, but why isn't the anti-lynching bill on my desk? Where is the George Floyd Act on my bill? Where is the Voting Rights Act? In this time of just so much voter suppression happening, who is asking for it? Who's pushing this? And come on, like, what is happening?
I agree with you, wholeheartedly in that. Why is it that we have this and nobody wanted that? You mean that, I didn't order this. That's like sitting in the restaurant and you order steak and somebody brings you a cheeseburger. I didn't order this. This is not what I wanted.
Yes.
Forgive me for those that don't eat beef, but I'm saying that, the issue is, how is it that we are, this got signed into law and we're still waiting on the George Floyd, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act? And the simple answer to the story is, folk will be happy to vote for the symbolic, but they're not willing to vote for the substantive. And that really comes along, I think, in
that's good, Fred.
More strongly, I see this on the Republican side of things, which is why personally I don't understand why people side themselves with that side of things. But we have some Democrats, where that hold up the old adage, with friends like these, who needs enemies? And I think that we have to look at the inner workings of the Senate. I was on a call today with a couple of members of Congress, just so happened, and one of whom is going to be running for the Senate in Florida, Val Demings, and she said some things that were really profound, and I was very happy to hear her say that. But it brought to me this understanding: she's running for a seat currently held by a Republican, and the Senate is divided. As much as we like to say we took the Senate, we didn't take the Senate. The Senate is divided. It's 50-50. To get something passed in the Senate without the threat of a filibuster, you need 60 votes. That's a supermajority. 60 votes and more is a supermajority. That means you don't have to debate things. You can just take them to the floor and vote. And I think that while there are many things that we're going to have to hold Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's feet to the fire on, over these 4 years, there are some things that we're going to have to hold up. I don't think that, the infrastructure bill, he's willing to deal a little bit too much away I think that he dealt too much away in the COVID bill. We're going to have disagreements. I think getting out of Afghanistan is an interesting play, but if you look at what's getting ready to happen in Afghanistan, now that Pandora's box is open, what do you do? And that's a conversation we can have. I think Israel and Palestine is a mess, and we've got to make some different stances in the world. So there's going to be many places where we have disagreement, but we need something different in the Senate. And I think that where we are right now, as folks are gearing up for the 22 election cycle, is that we need to flip some seats, quite honestly, and hold on to the House. And this voter suppression wave that's going on in different parts of the country is a threat to us if there are thin majorities in these various races in the House and in the Senate around the country. So what I'm proposing is that we start now, groundswell type of thing. Everywhere you go, you need to be with voter registration forms. And I know some folks, hate to hear me start talking about folks got to vote. But in this instance, there is no other way. We have to have more seats. And we have to do some of the things that we did in this last election. We're going to have to spend some money. Some folks, if you have some opportunity to give to some of these campaigns, we're going to have to give to some of these campaigns. Give to these groups that are registering voters in Georgia, in Florida, in the Midwest, those places that saw so much success that they started flipping states. We're going to have to do that. And we're going to have to look at the 22 election like we looked at the 20 election, in that this is for all the marbles. Because if we lose the Senate and we lose the House, Joe Biden will be impeached. Whether he's removed is another story. But if you look at this cockamamie group that is in the House and the Senate on the GOP side now, you know that if they're still touting the big lie, you know that they're going to do whatever they can do in 22 if we decide that we're not voting. And I don't mean just black people. I mean everybody. It's not for black people to say, everybody's got to get into this. And folks will use Juneteenth as a political ploy to say, well, look, what else do they want? We gave them this and they didn't give us anything. We can't fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Yeah. And I love it because so many people talk about how do we, we need to hold people accountable. We need to hold ourselves accountable too, right? What are we doing to make sure that our vote is heard? And that old, saying I don't vote because it doesn't matter. Obviously, it matters a whole lot by all the effort they are putting in to make sure we don't get that opportunity, right? Absolutely. So, and we got to bring in theology in this, right? We got to bring in the faith community. Where are we at? I just need to know where are we now? I feel like there was a fervor. I feel like there was a galvanizing. There was, with the George Floyd, all of this, and I'm getting nervous that we're getting ready to start seeping back into our normal, space now that there isn't no videos being shown now that or nothing's hit the fan like George Floyd yet. That our voices, we're getting quieter. What's going on?
Well, I'm seeing folks, I'm seeing some people get involved. I'm seeing some of the organizing groups who are out here hustling, who are trying to engage people of faith and faith communities. And I am encouraged that we have an opportunity not to go back to our own, our only thing we're concerned about is good church on Sunday mentality. And I'm encouraged that there are different groups that are coming together. I'm meeting with some people tomorrow, some Asian pastors and who are interested in liberation. And we didn't necessarily always talk about liberation. Or those weren't sustained conversations. One or two of us might have brought it up, but then we want to go back into salvation. And I'm not interested in any conversations about salvation that don't also bring up liberation in the world we are in right now. And I am excited. You might have gotten the invitation that the seminar on the political economy and the kingdom of God conversation that we've been having through union with Aubrey Hendricks. And that's wonderful. And I can't wait for the next session. But we have to change what it is that we're talking about. And we have to make sure that we are relating the fact that Jesus is the Savior. Yes, Jesus the Redeemer, but Jesus the Liberator. And folk are not interested only with what comes behind the eschaton. We want it right now, too. Yes. And that is something that has to be discussed. We have to discuss it. We got to put it in that language and open up for everybody that the kingdom of God is not just heaven. And it requires an ethical framework that we have to live into. And if we can't live into it on the earth, I question whether we actually believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. I question whether or not there's a home for us on the other side of the Jordan if we can't live right down here? And I know the different denominations are going through their conversations. I guess the Southern Baptist Church did what they had to do to keep some black churches from running away. But we've got to make some major changes in how we operate as a church Catholic. And you know what? It might require that we get with folks who don't believe or believe that you can be right just with an ethical framework. Jesus offered us an ethical framework. The gospel is full of ethical frameworks that we have to look into. It's not just about, early Sunday morning. It's about what Jesus did on the countryside. And I think that Juneteenth, to bring it back to that, gives us an opportunity to have a new conversation about the kingdom of God and just how far away from it those folks in Galveston were. And then ask the question, how much closer are we today? How much closer are we to freedom? Because freedom isn't just the body. This is what Val Deming said. I told her I was going to tell you this. Freedom isn't just freedom of the body. If you can't eat on a regular basis, how free are you? If you are not fully employed, how free are you? If you can't educate yourself and your children, how free are you? You are a slave still. And that is where we are today, in the freest, greatest nation on the earth.
Wow. That was good. Well, listen, you gave me hope, because I was starting to get worried, right? That we have it in pockets, but then for the local churches, kind of seeping back into that space of complacency, right? So I'm glad to hear that there is hope, but also that conversation of the kingdom of God. That conversation of the kingdom of God, also having to have this conversation with other people that might not look like us and might not be of our faith. How do we bring it? And you probably wasn't expecting this question, but it's something you can speak to just because of your theological background. How do we bring in the rest of us, right? So we got the Christian front. How do we engage with the Muslims, right? How do we engage with Buddhists or different ones whose tenets of their faith don't buy into or believe in liberation as well, right? Or believe in the freedom of people and are wanting to be involved in the social justice movement. How do we come together? Because I also feel like we've been siloed off, right? We got the Black church over here, but in the middle of our communities, we have mosque, right? We have other faiths, and I don't see that ecumenical or that faith kind of dialogue happening, and maybe I'm just missing it. But I feel like we need all hands on deck. I feel like this is an all hands on deck. If you got black hands, white hands, we need all hands on deck, because to your point, when 22 comes, they are going to be, we need change to happen. We need seats to flip, right? Because if it doesn't, that means as soon as they get the chance, they're going to be trying to bring the orange guy back. Right? They're already raising money. They're already doing what they feel they need to do to get Donald Trump back in office. So how do we go about engaging everyone that's in the community, whether you own in the beauty supplies? Because listen, if you're going to be on our blocks, you need to be involved in our fight. Okay, if you're going to be an owner of the Chinese restaurant, the beauty supply store, you guys have heard me rant about this before. Okay, the gas station, all of these businesses right in our Black communities that aren't owned by Black people, but brown people, how do we put their feet to the fire to join us in the fight for liberation? Because it's in their best interest as well.
I will say that I'm trying to figure that out. I'm not going to tell you I have that answer, because I don't know that I have that answer, other than to say, if we would look at what it is we believe, right, and set those things aside that we don't need to debate, and then talk about what it is that we have in common. and where it is that we need to be focused. That's really what it comes down to. In the interreligious and interfaith organizations that I am involved in, I think that some of them, I know there's a interfaith organization in Newark, and they can get stuff done. I don't know that that they have been focused yet on 22 or a lot of the other issues that are facing, but they've tackled how they can be involved in human trafficking, and they've tackled at great length and with a lot of effort how to help Black and brown communities in the city of Newark get COVID vaccinated. And that's probably the most recent act and feeding people when food through various resources had been brought into the city, to be able to say, well, this is our distribution, we're having it on this day, and to put the word out. It's good. Is it enough? Probably not. But it's that just has to be replicated in other places. Because I think the day was that we were fine just to remain within our walls, but we can't live like that. And you remember all these conversations that over these last 18, 19 months about, well, we can't go back to normal. When we come out of COVID, we can't go back to normal. Well, COVID's not finished with us, but we effectively are returning. Folks are coming back to church. We've been in service for more than a month now, with limited population, still online, but also in the building. Some places never closed.
Right.
Some people never stopped going to work. A lot of essential people never stopped going to work because they had to serve folks. But now folks that don't have to work from home can come out a little bit now. They can go and be around folks a little bit more now. And you know what? I think people just like water will seek their own level. And it will be very easy for us to go right back into, the old ways,
yes,
the old things. But I am encouraged that more people are able to engage in more ways, irrespective of their brand names and symbols, to do what needs to be done. And what you're calling for is exactly what we need to do. We're planning something to engage. I pastor a church that is a Black church. It's always been a Black church. We're in our 121st year, have always been in the North Ward of Newark, but the area that we're in has never been a Black neighborhood. People have always come from outside. There might be one or two around us, but at one point it was a lot of Italians and Irish. And at another point it was a lot of Italians, and mostly Italian. At another point, it started to switch into more of a Latinx neighborhood, which is what it is today. There are Black people, but not that many. But we're around them. So we're inviting them to come in and do some things as we kind of open up dialogue so that we can be of service and greater service to the community. We've invited them to things before. Now we're just going to continue to do that sort of work, because why? They're going to have needs. And I think that the folks that are around us are largely U.S. citizens. And we're going to need for them to be with us. But what can we do to support their children? How do we support their learning? How can we be of help? And how can we organize to do what needs to be done for them in their situation? And then could this be a model for where we need to go? But I'll tell you another thing, just in our denomination, Black folks, Black people are not a monolith. Black Baptists are not a monolith.
That's right.
And, there are quite conservative people. So as we're looking out to other communities, to talk to them, we also got to think about how it is that we talk to us. 20% of Black men in exit polls voted for Donald Trump in 2020. That number was 13% in 2016. So obviously somebody's going in the wrong direction. And it was
that number.
We have to talk about that.
Yeah, that was one of those statistics I suppressed, because it's just shocking to believe. It's just hard to believe that 20% of Black men that voted for Donald Trump. That's a significant number, and it saddens me. I feel like something's missing. Something we haven't done. Something. What is it, right? And how do we correct it? What do we need to do? Where are these people at? Where are these guys coming from? Are these black guys married to white women? Like, where do we need to find? And I'm not saying that's the case. Just saying, like, I want to know who they are. I want to find them, and I want to understand what would make them, feel like that was their best choice. And again, like you said, because we're not a monolith, doesn't mean that there aren't some legitimacy to why people may have found him attractive enough to vote for. But that's the dialogue I don't think we have been having. And I just think, though, in our community, we can't afford it, right? We can't afford to be left still on the margins, right? We don't want to be 10 years down the line and we're still asking for the right to vote. We're still dealing with something as simple as the right to have our voice heard. I just think, I don't know what needs to happen so that we don't keep going there. Well, we got ideas, but I'm saying, like, I don't know what it will take to get those people who are on that other side to understand that they're voting against their own interest. And that's the discouraging part for me, is trying to get people to understand. Perhaps it's just educating. Perhaps we need to have more opportunities. We talked about not knowing our own history, not knowing just so many of our stories, but I don't think we even know our stories in relation to other communities. We don't know. I don't think they know. I don't think all of Chinese people necessarily know that we part of the act that was against them coming in the country and how the Civil Rights Act helped them out as well. Like, I don't know if people even know our history's impact on their liberties that they come here and experience, sometimes more than what we do, from those of us who were born here, right? So I'm just wondering, and to be honest, it can feel so daunting, right? Like, we need to educate over here, we need to educate with them, we need to educate over there, we need to do this, we need to do that. How do we diversify? Like, part of my concern is that because we don't have this unified voice, right? When we don't, it's almost like when you have those marches, everybody comes that has an agenda. So you got the Women's March, but you got women over here fighting for reproductive rights. You got women over here fighting for trans rights. You got women over here. Like, it's like we're not united. We're united just to end the space, but everybody has a separate agenda, which just then sparses us out. Right? So how do we get a unified agenda, but then we are able to strategically be placed where parts of us can work on different things? Like, everybody, all hands on deck for voter suppression, but while you're doing that for voters' rights, and registration to against suppression, but then other groups could be working on something else, right? Like the bills that we need passed, the George Floyd bills, the this, the that. I just don't know the strategy. What I do know is we have a new holiday, right? What's the strategy? And do we need one? Maybe I'm too old school. I'm still looking for that strategy and that one voice, that unified voice. Maybe it doesn't need to look that way. I don't know.
Well, I think you're getting at something that has to be talked about. Did we both take that organizing class at Drew? Did you take that?
I did.
2011 or 2012. It was that Jan term thing.
Yes.
I think you, me, and Rodney were in that. So, as I look at what you're saying, it really think about the math of it. Our friend Odessia had, she has that profile of shame, and she selected Andrew Yang for her current one. And, he always likes to have that pin on during the presidential, the run up in the primaries that said math. It's simple math. We make up, as Black people, 12, 13% of the population across the board. Some places a little more, some places a lot less. We're going to be a smaller and smaller piece of the American electorate as we go on, because America's browning, but it's not blackening. We're not necessarily coming here in large numbers. What's here is here. So I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to organize, because just like when you look at the Irish and the Italians, and I guess perhaps maybe the Poles to a lesser extent, but definitely Irish and Italian at the turn of the last century, as we moved through the progressive era and they left Black folks to the side, the Irish and the Italians became, they transformed. They were no longer Irish and Italian. They were white.
They were white.
I think that we can see the same thing happening with certain Hispanic and Latino groups who might try and make that jump. Not on their own, but just kind of invited into this space because they identify with some of these things. And, there's an opportunity here for, the Republican Party, and folks have called for the death of the Republican Party of its own doing, not killing it, but just, hey, these guys are going to be out in 2030, 2040, 2050. No, they are going to do what they did with it in slavery. They will transform this thing to their benefit to establish a popular majority. And that's the thing. For us to become this land of the free and home of the brave requires us to be a multi-ethnic, egalitarian, multiracial democracy. We're not there, and we never have been. But for us to get there, we're going to have to organize with other groups. We're going to have to find places for us to say to other communities and them with us, we have to get together for political power, and I think that Latinx groups in various cities are probably, the first step, but, we've got to get with Koreans. We've got to get with Indians. We've got to get with Bangladeshis and Filipinos. We've got to come together in ways, and we have more in common with Black Muslims than we do with almost anybody else. And we all need to get on the same page with respect to the liberation that will assist all of us. But I'll tell you, I've had some conversations in diversity task forces with on the job, right? I work for a Fortune 500 company with my real estate practice, and we've been able to move the needle a little bit with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the folks are talking right. And I'm seeing some folks in different positions, more Black women in leadership positions, running businesses within the firm, and it's great, right? And they're talking like it's right. But in certain spaces, I was with some women, very senior women in one of our larger offices, and a young Indian woman is telling me about her understanding, and she didn't use the term intersectionality, but I could tell that she understood, she got it with respect to organizing, and is working on behalf of people who are in her community, right? Because there are not a lot of people represented in her community, not enough for equity, but she's working for others in other communities and using her voice to push that forward. And while this is just one example, it's an example where I said, they understand that they benefited. I've heard her say it out of her mouth. She's benefited from the movement, which spurred the civil rights movement, which spurred affirmative action programs, which made it possible for folks to start to get experience and to be brought into the fold. And, she understands, and folks are starting to understand. We've got to pay attention to problems that are not just our own. And for us as Black folks, we've got to find ways to make sure that we are working where we can with Native communities and with Hispanic and Latino communities, with other folks for the purposes of whatever it is. And what did they tell us? All organizing is organizing and deorganizing, right? Disorganizing. We don't have to get together for every little thing, but sometimes we're going to have to get together if we're looking for power. And power is the issue. And power is just an ability to act. But I think that we can use Juneteenth. You in your company, you had your thing, and a lot of people attended, and I would venture to guess that everybody wasn't Black. I, in my company, we had something today, and the person who decided to have the event was the CEO, and he's not Black. So the issue is, are we seeing other people make some of these moves? Yes. Now that we have this door open, now let's come in with our agenda. because we got some other things that we want to do. We want some more folks hired. We want some more businesses that have the opportunity to do business with us. We want to organize. We want these people to give their money, their personal dollars, their own disposable income to our issues. We want to see people when we're having things. We want to be able to, here's the next thing. I don't know if you felt it, but you're a corporate folk. You have a corporate background just like I do. In every space you've been in, have you been free to say the thing that you needed to say in that moment? And could you have the conversation to say, this is where we all need to be? You know, that maybe you are, because I know you're a very direct person. But not in every situation have I felt like I could have a conversation with everybody. And I asked the CEO of my company a direct question that he answered in a direct manner. We're in a different time. And I think that we ought to be able to strike while this iron is hot, because I asked this man about liberation. And while they're not going in all of the directions that I might choose, I'm not the leader of the company, but I saw some things that I was encouraged by. And we can take that into every area of our lives and use Juneteenth or whatever holiday is coming up, our celebration, to say we are here today because enslavement did not end. And there is more work to do. So I think to kind of tie it all together, forgive me for going on a long time about this, we cannot be in a position where we don't know what we're doing and we don't know what we're talking about. And the juking and the jiving, in my mind, in my estimation, is not fully understanding where those people in Galveston were on June 19th. Because on June 20th, 1865, there were still enslaved Africans in this country. And if that's the case, then when is independence? This is not an independence thing. This is a relation for an event that happened. And I meant to say this earlier, the things that General Order 3, which was the formal announcement that General Granger wrote to announce the end of enslavement in Texas and the defeat of the Confederate States of America, of which Texas was a part, he talked about equality, that the formerly enslaved would live equally with those who had enslaved them. Tell me where that is. Tell me that's reality. Right. And if that's not the case, then we can't celebrate it like it is. Let's just call the truth. And then we have an opportunity to talk about, okay, so that's taken care of. Now, why is it that Texas is trying to take away my vote? Have that conversation.
Fred, oh my God, you dropped so many bombs. But yes, indeed, yes. Well, we're winding down. There's one thing I wanted to ask you about. And again, you've been giving us such rich things to think about and dropping such good nuggets for us. When we talk, though, about talking and dialoguing or trying to work with others, you know, think of how quick that Asian American hate bill passed, right? How quickly it passed, but also how they made it look like on the media, it was predominantly Black people attacking Asians. But from my understanding, if you look at all the numbers, it hasn't been the majority of Black people. So that pitting against each other that they tend to do. But help us understand and just say a little bit more even when it comes to that, because I feel like part of what's gotten in the way of us connecting with some of these people is some of the hurts of being pitted against each other, right? Of feeling betrayed by or ignored and neglected, like the Asian population. I heard people say, why should they care, right? They never care about us. They've never done, and they've come in our communities and they've never cared about who we are as a people. And now you want me to care because a couple of them got beat up, you know, like welcome to the party, right? And then you have others who feel like, no, we need to stand together and care about their issues so that we can kind of connect. And the hope is they in turn would care about ours, and we have that connection, you know, and even with the Latinx communities, where we have seen the pitting against each other for resources, the pitting against each other, the colorism plague even amongst us and their own community, right? So what do we do with that? And I know we only got a few minutes, but you know, I feel like there has to be a dialogue that speaks to the truths of these hurts, right? Because again, healing is the only agenda. If we don't heal as separate communities coming together to heal the harms that we have done to each other while being victimized by white supremacy and being of color in America, we'll never really get there, right? We'll always just have little pockets of enlightened people over here. I feel like in the Northeast, we got those pockets. And then you start going further down south and you start going more across the country, middle of the country. We're not seeing that same enlightenment. We're not seeing that same those same dialogues that we are used to or beginning to become used to having up here. So what do we do with it? How do we legitimize and start to heal?
Let me say it. I agree with you, and I know that we had quite an interesting dialogue, or dialogue is the wrong word. We had quite an interesting conversation with multiple partners over text around this thing specifically, and I get it. I mean, I understand. I remember 1992. I remember, all of the different things that people have said about us and how folk have not really cared about, things we were going through. And then here comes this issue, which is very real, by the way, and I think an issue that was flying under the radar for some of us because we weren't really particularly concerned with it. But listening to some of my Asian sisters talk about how it is they get treated as they present to the world, and listen to how some of my Asian brothers are talking about how it is that some things have happened to them and they just internalize it. They don't, they're not making a big deal out of it, and nobody really cares in the popular media. But if you look around, there've been some hate killings of Asian people, and it didn't just start a couple years ago. But to your point, there are real hurts and harms that we feel because nobody wants to be in our shoes. And folk want to come to America and live the American dream, but they don't want to come to America and live the American dream as Black people. They might want to wear our clothing and listen to our music and rebel like against their traditions by being a certain way in the world, but they don't want to be us, right? And I think that the way for us to come together, because in this moment, as I have had dialogue with some of my Asian brothers and sisters and heard their stories and seen them, cry from the pain and talk about the over-sexualization, and then also have the opportunity to dialogue with folks who are telling me, I see that white supremacy is trying to pit us together against each other because we are prioritized in their parlance, using that term. They said this model minority. One person said at a rally, "Don't be fooled by that model minority stuff. Don't be proud of this model minority stuff, because that is only a tool of the oppressor to keep you in your place and everybody else in their place." And it was an Asian sister, a Filipino sister, who said this. And I think that the thing that we have to do now is, while the iron is hot, there are folks ready to engage. I'm having lunch with a bunch of Asian pastors tomorrow and some Black pastors. And we've been coming together for years. We've been having lunch and talking for years. And we've talked about this somewhat, but I don't think we really pulled back the Band-Aid and got into that wound to heal it. And this is the moment. And we've been doing it these last few months, really making great work. Folks got up and prayed at a prayer rally not too long ago and repented of the things that they did and the racism that they have held out. And I said, this is one place at one time with one small group of people in the steps of the courthouse in Hackensack, New Jersey on one hot afternoon. It was Pentecost Sunday, and it was a breezy day, and the Spirit showed up, let me tell you. And I think we had a moment to say, we are together as God's children looking for our liberation, our shared liberation. and that we can now move forward in a new way, having had some honest dialogue. If we can do that in more places with more partners, we can win. And that's the reason nobody wants this, because if you keep everybody in their caste, then the powerless don't rise up and aggregate power. But if the castes can flatten the hierarchy and come together, then that's a problem. Why? That's why Fred Hampton had to die.
Wow.
That's why the state had to kill Fred Hampton, because he brought people together that wasn't supposed to be together. The native folks, the white folks, the black folks, the gays, the Latinos. He brought people together that weren't supposed to be together. And at that point, hold on a second, what could they do if they had political power? Political power? What could we do as people, even if we're not in the same racial affiliation? If we got together and said, we don't want qualified immunity anymore. We want accountability. We love law enforcement. You are a member of the community. You are welcome in the community. We need you to do your work, but you have to do it with honor. You have to do it with respect, and you have to do it with love, because you work for us, and we're not sending you in the world to kill us. And that's the way we all have to think.
Wow. Fred, it's 10 o'clock. I wish we could go on. I wish we could go on. But my God, thank you for being with us tonight and just enlightening us, inspiring us, reminding us, and educating us on just how we can handle and balance out this holiday, along with all the other things that we have on our plate to be held accountable to. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. And I would love to have even more so and what we can do. I think that's a worthy rant that we can have about just strategizing on ways that we can come together in our communities, especially as the demographic starts to change in so many of them. Okay, so please wait in the studio. I don't want you to leave. You guys, I hope you enjoyed that. What a blessing he is to the body, right? And just so much information. That was awesome. And it gave me so much to think about it. Thank you guys for being on. Listen, you guys know you can catch me on Roku TV on the Inspired Living Network every Friday at 12 noon, where we show the shows that we do on Thursdays. So if you missed one, you can see it again on Roku. But also, please share, tag people to come and listen to this dialogue so that they are enlightened and educated as well. We can't keep all this to ourselves. Okay. I love you. I'm glad that you are with me. And listen, we got work to do. So celebrate your holiday, enjoy yourself, enjoy the remembering our resilience, but don't get sidetracked. Okay. Don't fall for the okie doke. We still got other things we have to do. Okay. Take care. I love you. I will see you next week.